So my name's Olivia Kirwan. I am a channel account manager at HubSpot, and I've been at HubSpot now nearly 5 years, and I work with the likes of Digital 22, who have just made Diamond as well, so congratulations. So I think that's been on Ricky's mind from this morning. But I help pretty much agencies grow or to be more successful. One of the areas that I help them grow or to be more successful is around account-based marketing. So what I want for you guys to take away from today is some practical elements on how you can run account-based marketing, incorporate that as well around GDPR, and then also take practical elements. So I want to make sure that you guys are ultimately more engaged around ABM and what it means. So thank you also for inviting me today to Manchester. So I've been to Manchester quite a few times. I used to live in London, and I used to love coming up to Manchester to go to the games and to go to Old Trafford. The last time I think Manchester won 2-1, but I think we had the worst seats in the venue. So it was a brilliant experience and we had a great night out afterwards, but the worst seats in the house. But Manchester is certainly a great place. So delighted to be here and to speak at this, and happy Valentine's from yesterday as well. So to set the agenda, we'll go through what is account-based marketing. We'll go through how account-based marketing and inbound don't always agree. We'll also go through from a practical element. So within my 5 years at HubSpot, I've been working for nearly the last year with agencies, but prior to that, I was a corporate rep in HubSpot. So I'll talk you through the practical elements around account-based marketing and what HubSpot actually did. So what was my role? How did I incorporate account-based marketing into HubSpot? So we'll look at certainly self-applications. So the first thing up is, so what is account-based marketing? Now, I'll open this up to you guys as well, so let me know your feedback. I'm going to ask the audience, and if no one calls out, I'll call some people's name, but who's going to be the first person to put their hand up and say, what do they think account-based marketing is? And don't be shy.
Is it marketing as account-based?
Twisting it around. So I think the first thing everyone does is look at the wiki. So the definition of what account-based marketing is, and I'll leave this up on the screen for you all to read, but it's basically a strategic approach to how you target companies. So it's around companies. It's really focusing in on companies and accounts rather than just individuals. So I'll just leave that for a few seconds for you to think about account-based marketing. Some more takers. So account-based marketing is different than ultimately purchasing a list. It's having a strategic approach around what types of companies do you want to work with? How do you engage from both a marketing and a sales perspective, and how do you align? So as some of you may have probably previously done, it's always interesting to know whether people have purchased a list as well or whether they've worked from a list, and most people have. It'll obviously change as well around GDPR, which Nikita will talk about afterwards. But we want to think about, right, how does ABM and account-based marketing differ than buying a list? And how it differs is that strategic approach. And I'll go through 6 practical outcomes. Some of you may recognize this, the yellow pages, and wonder why I'm putting it up, but this ultimately, and I've used lists before in my previous jobs, around purchasing lists or working through the yellow pages. For those of you who don't know what the yellow pages, it was basically a telephone book where you could gather a list of and make calls from. A marketer's and salesperson worst nightmare. Has everyone used lists or purchased lists before? Okay. 50-50, I'd say. So I want you to shout out one word as to what it's like using a purchase list.
Hard.
Bad idea.
Bad idea. Hard. Who else?
Scattergun.
Scattergun. Basically, it's a nightmare. It's so frustrating. And it's frustrating from both marketing and from a sales perspective. Because ultimately, you're dealing with someone that's cold and you don't actually know why. It's not a strategic approach. I'll share with you my experience as well with using this. So when I finished my master's, I went off to London to sell private jets, and I was given a list. So I was given a list of all the top high net worth individuals, and I thought it was a great idea to send them all an email with the same thing. Little to say that I was so naive in terms of that I didn't get much response. But I had my list and I had all the right people. I've got all my high net worth individuals. I'm going to sell loads of flights on private jets. Needless to say, it didn't work. It was so hard to sell off that list. Nobody responded to me because it was the same list. I thought that one generic email was going to have huge responses. It had very little responses because my emails, they weren't targeted. And here's the 6 practical steps that I learned when I moved to HubSpot and what I introduced. So step 1 is identify your target. Identify the types of companies you want to work with that are a good fit for you. Identify within that the types of people that you want to work with. Now, there's typically about 3 people that's involved in account-based marketing. So 1, you're looking at the company, then you're looking at the types of people, then you're choosing your content. And this is where marketing helps in. So from a marketing perspective, you need to understand who the salespeople are talking to so you can create the content that's relevant, and also vice versa. Because salespeople need to utilize the marketing around what types of communication are best. And then choose your channels. So are you sending it out on Twitter, social, LinkedIn? Do you already have obtained their email addresses? What's the best forum? And that will also change depending on who you're targeting. Then run that campaign. So effectively put it into place. And then measure those results. So there's no point in just having that scattergun approach. You want to make sure that it's all measured, it's all focused. And if you're using the HubSpot CRM or other types of CRMs, you can tag that this is account-based marketing, that this is ABM, so you get results around it. So you're really focusing on high value accounts. So I would have learned a lot if I had have taken this approach selling private jets, which clearly I didn't, and I had a really bad response from my emails. But if I had targeted my email, messaged it correctly, I would have been a lot more successful. So how account-based marketing and inbound don't always agree. And I'm also standing up here in front of you talking from HubSpot's perspective. So there is an overlap, but there are areas in which they both agree as well. Also, as well as Nikita will go through, GDPR. So is account-based marketing not outreach? Is that not going outbound and we're promoting inbound? So in terms of this, with account-based marketing, you're not just emailing people, you're targeting them very specifically on LinkedIn, on social, retargeting campaigns. You're not just emailing them without their consent. You want to engage and make sure they've filled out those forms. Or you want to bring them, if you're mentioning on LinkedIn, send them back via maybe whether it's a meeting request or a landing page which has that form for a free consultation. So then you're starting to get their consent, but always seek legal advice. It's a HubSpot side. They were like, yes, you can put up the slide, but you're to say seek legal advice. Other areas in which account-based marketing and inbound overlap. So companies are number 1. You always need to think about the companies. Who are those companies that you're targeting? You also want to be, from a sales perspective, not over salesy. Nobody likes that over salesy person. Everyone just hangs up the phone. You want to make sure that when you're connecting with them, you know why, when, and who you're connecting with. Also, personalization is number 1. Don't just message for the sake of messaging, thinking that you have to get out a certain number of messaging. Make sure that from a marketing perspective, your marketing is relevant for who they are. So if it's a CMO versus a CEO versus a salesperson, you'll send out different messages to them. And that's where marketing comes into play and is really pivotal. So you need to understand what types of marketing that you're creating for the different personas, and then send that out accordingly. Now, also another key area that I'd overlook is, are they going to any events? Is there any events that you're going to, or webinars? Is there something that's unique or different? Are they expanding? Are they opening up new offices? Why are you connecting with them? What's that reason for the outreach? And then you're being helpful with the content that you're providing. And this also takes time. So this is going outbound, but it's a strategic approach to who you want to work with and who you can help. So it takes that little bit longer than someone coming direct to your website saying they want a free consultation. So it will take a little bit more time, but you're getting to work with the types of companies that suit your business and your organization. And then that marketing is key. So marketing, I think, is a HubSpot term where sales and marketing are aligned, because you need to both work together. So sales needs to work with marketing and marketing needs to work with sales, because from a marketing perspective, you've got great content out there. You want the sales team positioning it correctly. And sales also needs to work with marketing to make sure that the positioning is correct. And then use data. So I'll go through my stats with regards to HubSpot, how that impacted, so that you can see, right, well, what does that look like? And it will be different for everybody, but we want to make sure that it's as interactive and relevant for you. So I'll go through my own experiences as well. So what did I do in HubSpot for the last 4 years around selling, how I utilized HubSpot and account-based marketing. I'll also talk about some of the tools that I use for account-based marketing. So afterwards you can utilize those, see how relevant they are for your business. So within HubSpot, I was focusing in on corporate accounts. So I would focus in total I could work with 600 accounts. So I've got 600 accounts, which is quite a lot. Out of those, I would research and I would target specific companies, so account-based marketing. So out of these 600 companies, I would target 70 on account-based marketing. At any one time on a weekly basis, I would target 20. So that was my own back. So in total, I had 70 account-based marketing companies that I'd work with, and then every week I'd break it down into 20. Get rid of some, get some out. And it's also okay to remember that you're not going to get everyone to come back and say, yes, I want. That's not the way it works, unfortunately, with all marketing. But understand the stats that are relevant for you. So I've got 600 accounts I'm working, of which 70 I'm handpicking. And I'll go through my process around handpicking. And within that, once I've identified the companies that I want to work with, I need 3 key personas. I'm also targeting as well companies that are 200 employees plus. So from that perspective,
on Twitter.
ooh, didn't like that. Do I really sound like that? So that's my selling landscape here. In total, 600 accounts, 70 selected and handpicked via account-based marketing. And from that, I would have 3 roles within each company. Who I'm targeting is typically the CMO, the CEO, and a sales director at a minimum, because it's companies over 200. I also need someone in finance or procurement or COO or the chief commercial officer. So always think about companies first, then within the companies do your research on who you want to target, and that messaging will differ. So the messaging that I'm sending to a CEO is very different than the messaging I'm sending to marketing, is very different than the messaging I'm sending to sales. So that's where I'd align in with our marketing team in HubSpot and say, I'm running this account on a specific industry, on a specific target. What resources can I utilize that will be helpful for these industries? And these are the types of tools that I would have used. So HubSpot sequences, shameless there, buy sequences. The other where I'd always start as well is on LinkedIn. So I'd create my LinkedIn, who I wanted to target, 200 plus. I'd also look at geography. I'd also want to look at location around somewhere in the UK. Around London was an easy option for me because I could go over, I could meet with people, we would have events, so I'd have a really good reason to invite them. I would also use, you can do retargeting. So you can have a look at your list that you're targeting, and then you can retarget or remarket, whether it's ad roll, whether it, depending on what you guys use. I'd also use Growthbot for my list, or via Slack. So that came up with, you know, useful insights around who's using Marketo in London, and I get a list of everybody, and I was like, this is great, but there had to be a real reason as to why I'd reach out. Direct mail. You still need to get it targeted, but if it's something unique, it's something different, and it makes you stand out, then certainly, but you need to think about what you're sending and why you're sending it. Engagio, Slack, Datanize. So there are also other tools that I would have used, more so on the Datanize. Really great insights in terms of that, shows you and utilize. Now there's lots of tools that are similar to Datanize, so it's about finding out what works best for you. But from Datanize, I could see what companies were currently using, what softwares they were using, how they were using it, when they'd install that tracking code. So I could really create this list. Started off at LinkedIn, creating my list. Then I would create HubSpot sequences so that I could tailor the information. I'm editing, I'm personalizing that information, and I'm also using our marketing team. And then I'd also have options of retargeting, messaging, like even some,
What's HubSpot sequences? Is it automated email?
On a one-to-one perspective, yeah. So marketing in HubSpot marketing in general, the email is one-to-many, but the sequences, it's one-to-one. Yeah. Check it out. But yeah, it's so useful, because then if someone responds to that sequence, that they won't continue on with the emails. Or the idea of the sequence ultimately and the emails you're sending is to get a meeting. So I'd also pop in my meetings links to say, hey, book a meeting with me. And then you can use the forms appropriately to make sure then that you can consent as well from their perspective to send out emails. And Nikita will jump in more on